Good evening, everyone. Uh, yeah, good afternoon. About good evening. Yeah, so my session is about building GUIs with PowerShell, and yeah, my name is Rakesh Kethineedi. And this is a brief introduction about me. Uh, I mostly work on automation and cloud, and IoT and blockchain are my interest areas. So if anyone wants to discuss about that, feel free to contact me on Twitter. And I work at Bosch, Singapore, and I'm also holding another role as admin manager at Toastmasters International in Singapore. Okay. No, it's a logistics kind of thing. Yeah, admin manager for Division Z. Okay, quickly before we start with the session, the regular slides about PowerShell. You can go to docs.microsoft to learn about PowerShell and Microsoft Cloud Weeks. All right, so before we start the session, why GUIs with PowerShell? Purpose. Yeah, purpose. Help desk, exactly. So that is a very good use case. So help desk people, they don't like scripting, they don't like code, right? So they have this phobia of CLI. They like GUIs, right? If you have an automation and you want them to use it, you have to provide them with some GUI. They click a button and it works, so they are happy with it. And another set of people who don't like scripting is the managers. Right? Generally, they only care about visuals. If you have a lot of great automation happening, but if you are showing them, are expecting them to use some scripts to get something done, they won't do it. But if you can give them some application, that would help. Okay, so we can do it with PowerShell and we will see how to do it. Before we go, anyone here attended a session from Jason Yoder yesterday about PowerShell for masses? Okay, one of you. That was a great session as well. After the conference, if you get to see the videos, you can go through that. He covered about this topic using PowerShell Studio. So I'll touch upon that briefly. Yeah, but that's a good session. So before we go into the topic, so I'll cover these topics briefly. So I'll give a quick overview on WPF, which is what we will be using for creating the GUIs. And I'll also see what is the difference between WPF and Windows Forms, and understanding XAML. Creating XAML window, we will see how to create a simple window using XAML, and adding controls to the window and some WPF layouts. Anyone? Okay, so this is the agenda: creation of GUIs for free using PowerShell, and we also use PowerShell Studio, which is a paid software, but pretty good software. What is WPF? How many of you want me to explain this? Anyone very new to WPF? Okay, so basically WPF is a Windows Presentation Foundation. It is basically a set of classes which is part of the .NET framework now. It's part of .NET framework 3.0, and and the later versions. It's basically used to create any kind of graphical user interfaces. Right. This is taken from Wikipedia. And moving on to the comparison between WPF and Windows Forms. Everyone heard of Windows Forms, right? So they are the older version of GUIs. All applications used to be developed based on them. But now, from a few years, like from .NET 3.0 onwards, everything is developed using WPF. So So these are the main differences. The WPF is comparatively new. It uses something called DirectX, which gives it the capability of 2D as well as 3D graphics, and it also uses your GPU, graphical card, as well as the CPU. Whereas Windows Forms is quite old, based on user 32 and GDI. It only supports 2D and it runs only using CPU. So in our presentation today, we will create GUIs using WPF. And XAML is the language that we use to create these GUIs. XAML is basically the extensible application markup language, and it's simple language based on XML to create and initialize the document objects with hierarchical relations. Although it was originally invented for WPF, it can be used to create any kind of object trees. So I'll quickly go through how to create these XAML files. It's not complex. If any one of you, if you know HTML code, something similar to that, we will see quickly how to do that. All right, moving on to the GUI creation and simple script block. Okay, so this is how it looks. Don't get scared with the code here. So the first line, let's go to the first line. Just add type assembly presentation framework, right? So what we are doing there is basically we are importing the assembly for the WPF presentation framework, right? So that is kind of the standard line we use for all our code. And in this line here, what we are doing is we are creating a variable called form. You see, do we have a pointer?
I've got one.
Okay, so yeah, we have the form variable, and for that we are basically assigning all our XML or XAML code. Yeah. We are creating some XAML code and we are assigning it. Just give me a moment.
You need to factor in what will be the schema.
Yeah.
Enable and now just up one.
This one? Yes. Okay, yeah, so the form variable, it's a simple XML based variable, and within that we are putting all this content here, right? So let's go to the first line. So what we are doing in this line is basically we are creating an XML namespace. Yeah, XML namespace, and this is just a standard URI. So this code will remain the same for all our programs. So don't worry about it. You don't need to remember this, right? It's basically standard code for everything that we do. And let's go to the next line, title. Yeah, so let's see the next two lines shortly. And if you see, we are opening the tag and creating a window here, right? So we are creating a window, and this is the window tag. And within that, we are putting some code and we are closing the window tag. Okay, so the second line here talks about title of the window. Yeah. Okay, the second line talks of the title of the window. I'm putting the title as my first form, and I'm also specifying the height and width for my window, right? So any GUI will have a window basically, right? We should have a window, and within the window, then we will put various layouts. Within the layouts, we can put various controls like buttons or combo boxes or whatever we want. Right? So this is a simple. This code has a simple window, and it has some title and some dimensions, and it also has a button within it, and the name is my button, and width, height, and content. Content is just hello, right? So let's run this program on my laptop and see how it works.
No, we don't see anything.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's happened to me.
Okay. Let me get my code. Okay, we could see. All right. First try.
Tiny bit of zoom.
Control plus. Do you have any zoom options here?
Control plus. You know that. I don't know whether you have a proper plus.
Yeah, I don't have a proper plus here.
Control shift plus. No.
Ah, okay. Control function plus. All right. Okay. Just so that you will feel more familiar, let me try to change the theme here. Color theme, and I would like
What is it for now?
there is
Where is your live?
the ISC.
That's the that was not looking on the wrong menu.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Is this better? No.
It is. I think we put a reason.
Okay. Yeah. So you like this one or the previous one? The black
This one works.
Okay. So basically the same code is here, right? We have seen in the code, the presentation, and so this is the XML. Yeah. And finally, here we have a couple of other lines, but let's quickly try to run this code and see how it works. Okay, so it has executed and has opened the window here. Okay, so this is the form that is created, right? It has a window and it has some dimensions we have mentioned, and there's a small button with the text hello. Okay, so now let us see the other two lines here. So here what we are doing is we are creating a new object, yeah, of type XML node reader. So this is XML code, and we are reading the code using XML node reader, and then we are creating another variable, and we are reading it as an XML. So we are converting that into XAML, right? XAML is specific to WPF. And then we are loading the text whatever we have read here, right? So these two lines are pretty much same in every script that we write. Okay, and finally what we do is we will run this method called show dialog on this object, which will basically show or render this page, right? This window. So the standard text in every program that we write, every script, is the first line and the XML namespace and the last three lines. So these are the standard. So everything else would fall in this between the window. Okay. So now let's go to the other controls. Okay, let me check my scripts here.
Maybe you want to duplicate your
Yeah.
screen so you look at it better. Yeah. Windows 3.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks. All right. So we have seen the button, right? And let me see what will happen if I want to add one more button. Okay. So what I do is I just copy this thing. And I will make my button 1 and I can put hello 2. Okay. And I try to run this. It should fail. Yeah. So it gives some errors. And it's okay. So why? The problem is that window will only allow one one control visible. If you want to have more than one control, we need to have something called as layout, right? So now we will add layouts. So quickly going back to the presentation, you will see what are the basic layouts that we use. First thing is called stack panel. So this is a layout which will allow us to stack the controls, right? Let's say I want to stack my buttons vertically or horizontally. I could use something called a stack panel. And one of the other very common layout that is used is canvas. So canvas basically uses the entire area, and then we can specify where exactly we want to place each of the items, right? So that canvas is the most commonly used one, and another commonly used one is grid. Grid is mainly used when we want to show the content in form of tables, right? If you want to show a table, then grid is the right one to use. Let me quickly go back to some examples. Okay, so how do I add this layout? It's simply by just by adding this you know this tag here. So before my buttons, I just added this canvas. Within the canvas, I kept this, and that will allow me to have two buttons. Let's quickly execute this. Yeah. So yeah, now you can see my window has a couple of buttons here, but both are overlapped because I didn't mention anything else. No, I just mentioned different dimensions for both of them, and I can clearly see these things. Okay, let's take another example of grid. Okay, grid again. Okay, so within the grid, we can specify column definitions and row definitions. So grid, as I said, it's like a table, right? So in a table, we will have columns and rows. So now we want to specify how many columns I want to have and how many rows I want to have. Okay. So within this grid layout, I'm having something called as grid controls. So I'm saying that, okay, in a grid, I want to define the columns, the column definitions, and I have 3 column definitions, which means I have 3 columns, right? The first column doesn't have any parameters, but I'm saying that my second column should have the width 45 pixels, and third column can have nothing. Similarly, I have my row definitions. Yeah. And for the row, we are specifying height, whereas for the column, we are specifying the width. Let's quickly execute this one. And finally, we are also having buttons. In couple of these grids. If you see, I started with the grid. Within the grid control, I am having grid controls as well as buttons, right? And then I'm closing my grid layout. So within the grid, I will have some rows, columns, and as well as the buttons. Let's execute this program. Close this one. Okay. So yeah, here we have our grid, right? And it has a couple of buttons. And if you remember, we have specified 45 pixels. So this is the 45 pixel column and 45 pixel row. And the other two columns and rows are, use the complete space. So now you might be thinking, okay, I have mentioned, width, height, content, and for grid we can use, column 0. Uh, by the way, I hope you guys got the point that for the grid, right, the first one will be 0, 0, and 0, 1, 0, 2, so on and so forth. And we can use many other controls. Let me see what else I have here. Okay, I have a stack panel example. Okay, I'm using a stack panel, and we have width, height, and we also have the background. I'm also specifying some background color here. So you might be wondering, okay, how do I know? How do I know what are the various options that are available for any control? Right? So for that, you can always follow the documentation. We have seen docs.microsoft. So I'll give you the link. So there we have documentation for every control, right? Whatever you want to implement, you can see the documentation and you can give necessary dimensions. Okay, so this is the link. Here we have all UI elements, right? Everything. Let's quickly open this one.
Looks like your laptop is running on the phone.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's okay. I
Thanks
think
for
it
sending for-
should be
I don't even know
fine.
this time.
What you guys can see, right? Yeah. So yeah, in this page we have complete documentation on all our controls and layouts, and various options that we can use. So for example, let's say I want to use button here, right? So now if I click on this thing, then I get to see, what are the options I have, and also some examples. See here, we see various other properties. So we can specify background, for the button, and see these things that we have used. We can specify width, maximum width, minimum width, all these kind of things. Okay, so now so far we have covered how to create a simple script and create a simple UI, right? The UI will contain a window, and within that we have the layouts and various controls. And now we also know where to find various properties of these controls, right? Any questions so far?
I will be able to understand the button.
Okay.
One conflict.
Yeah. Yeah, let's, I have not covered that part, but yeah, we will come to that. So we have created buttons, but I have not specified what will happen if you click that button, right? The functionality, we can write a function on click with on click method to see what happens. Okay. Let's go back to our code. Now let me take a real-time example. Okay. So So now I have something called event log. Uh, so I have a use case wherein I want to know how many events have occurred with the event ID 1000 in the past 1 week, right? So I want to give an option to the user so that he can just input the event ID and select the date and then click submit. Then he will get to know all the events that occurred in the last so many days, right? So this is a simple example. Uh, let's quickly run this to see what exactly I'm talking about, and then we analyze the code. Okay, so this is my simple application, right? So here I can specify the event ID and computer name. So right now I just want to do in my local computer, so I just give dot. That should do. And then I select a date, right? I want to select for the past 3 days, right? And then I click start. Okay, and it says that there are four events of event ID 1000 in the past. Yeah, right, during this duration, right? So this is a simple application. Now we can see how how this functionality is working. So clicking on the start button. So let's go back to the script quickly. Okay, just ignore all these commented items. Let's come. So we have seen that add type is the first line. That's good. So we will come back to this function later, and this is where our XML starts, right? So this is the standard text, and after that I'm specifying some title for my window, event viewer, and some dimensions to it, and I'm specifying the whole thing as a grid, right? I have created all these elements, and now we are just interested on the functionality of the start button. Okay, okay, so these are also standard ones, and yeah, so this is where the actual uh, functionality starts. So what I'm doing is, okay, so I'm trying to find out, so win will contain all my XAML, right? The variable win will have my complete XAML, and within that XAML file, I'm trying to find out with the controls with name start. So I have named my button start. So it is important to name your controls differently so that it's easy to find them. Okay, so this is how I'm getting the content of it. So whatever is, yeah, so this control will then assign to this variable start. So on this start, then I can tell it to do anything else, right? Similarly, I'm also assigning all other, so I have various other elements here. So I'm trying to find with their names and assigning them to different variables. Okay, my event ID, date, computer name, and the result. Yeah. So now here is the add click function. So on the start variable, I'm running this method called add click, and within this brackets, whatever is mentioned is what will happen. Right? This is the actual functionality. So once the click event happens, then I'm saying, perform this action. So within this, then I can say, create some variables, and I'm also getting the date, right? Date and computer name. I'm getting all the inputs, and then running this command here. If event ID is equal to null or blank, or if any of these things are blanks, then it will show a message, error message saying that okay, please input all the all the details. If not, then execute the actual command. So this is the actual functionality that happens. Right? This is the else loop. Then I'm assigning the actual values, and I'm saying check event. So I'm just running this command there and passing the inputs. Any doubts so far? Yes.
Why are you not using the grid in your layout? Why are you specifying everything like pixels? If you look at your example, then you have like margins, tops, downs, but all of that is what grid does for you, because your layout is grid.
Yeah.
So why specify by hand and align it by hand when you can just use grid?
No, even if I use grid, I still have to specify.
No, you don't. Because the layout, like if you specify a grid and you say this one will be 3 times smaller than this side, then you will get pretty much the same layout. But then if you scale it up, it will scale automatically, and you don't have to align exactly your items.
Yeah, there are various ways of doing it. Yeah, that is also one way of doing it. But if I really want to specify, so this gives me the flexibility. Yeah, I mean, what you said is also right. We can do that way as well. But we can also do this way. So don't go into the technicalities of which layout to use. But yeah, the main thing that I want to convey is the idea on how to get this thing working.
Okay.
Right. Later on, we will. Actually, I have not written this code myself. I have auto-generated it, and we will get there to see how.
Drag and drop.
Yeah, drag and drop. Yeah, drag and drop. Right. So because we don't want to do all this hard work of writing this line by line, that's tedious. Okay, so later we will see how we can generate the code. Okay, but everything else clear so far? Okay, perfect. All right. Now let's see how we can generate this XAML file automatically by doing some drag and drops. So it can be done by using Visual Studio. Anyone very new to Visual Studio here? Okay, okay.
I don't know. I think you should scan like a badge or something, but I don't have the QR.
Okay. Yeah, let's get to the survey later. But yeah, this is the Visual Studio. It is basically application which is used to develop any applications in C# especially, and like ASP.NET, basically .NET applications can be developed using this. So I'm using Visual Studio. I'm going to create a new project. Okay, and I will select Visual C# and use WPF application, right? Okay, click OK. And a project is getting created of type WPF. Right? If you want to create any Windows applications, this is how you can do it simply. Okay, so now I have my main window already there, and on the left hand side you see the toolbox. You just click on it, and it will give you all the controls. Right? You have all the controls there: button, radio button, combo box, images, labels, everything else. Also at the bottom you see all WPF controls. So these are the WPF specific controls. Right? So the top ones are commonly used controls. If you want the entire list, you can go to the all controls. But anyway, this is not important for us. Right now we are looking at some basic stuff, right? So if you want to create a button, what I do is I just click on this button, drag and drop. Okay. So, and then I just put, expand it. And if I want to change the properties of it, I go to the right hand side, and here, I change the content. So I want to display hello. and I can also do various other things like changing the colors of the button, you know, and various other properties. Right? There's a lot of properties we can do all those stuff. And one of the important things to note is the name. Okay, so this name is important. Why? Because this is how we are trying to find the button later, right? So this one is something that I have to consciously put, and I have to remember this basically. Okay. Similarly, we can use any other controls to drag and drop and develop my UI. But once I have everything in place, how do I get this code? Okay, let me show you the code. Okay, where is my main window.xaml? Okay, bottom here, this is our XAML file that is generated out of this. So you can do a couple of things. One thing is you can just copy and paste in your script directly, or you can, you know, just take this XAML file and using the get content commandlet, you can get this content into your script. Right? So you can do either of that. So right now I'm using just copying this thing and pasting in my script. Yeah, I'll explain about that quickly. Okay, so within this, right, let me go to the right one. I want to do it within the part, my first form. Okay, let's put it here. Okay, so one of the thing that we need to note is .NET will add a couple of new things which we need to remove when we use them in the PowerShell. So one thing is to remove this X colon class. So this is something that we don't need. So we delete it, and all these namespaces are also redundant in PowerShell. So we remove them, and we also search for something called X colon. Yeah. So we should remove anything X colon, right? So we can do, yeah, we can just delete this thing.
So if you would keep the X namespace, it wouldn't compile.
It would compile, but it would cover.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't done this in a long while.
Okay. Okay, so now I have my content, right, XML. Then now we can simply run the script and we can go ahead. So we have seen how to create the scripts and how to create the XAML file as well. So now it's very clear, everyone can create your own application. Now, the thing that we were talking about is giving, now we have the script and we want to give a user, ask the user to run this. So still he has to open the script and execute. We don't want to do that. Okay, we want to give him something within a single click he should be able to do. So for that, what we can do is we can create an exe file. We can grab this script into an exe file and give it to him. So then he can double click the exe, then window opens up, he just key in the inputs and he's good to go. Right. So how we can do it? We have a few options on creating exes using scripts. So one of the common ones that is used is PS2exe. You can just Google about it. PS2exe. It's a it's a package. You can download it. So right now I already have it in my computer. This one, right? It's a simple PowerShell script. What it is basically converting my script into exe file. So let us quickly see how to use it. Okay, how I can use it is I can just call it PS2exe and I will specify my current script, whichever I want to convert. So I would say I want my stack panel, for example, or let me take another example. I have something called system check, right? I want to use that one, system check, and then I can give my file name, right? I will say system check 2, yeah, .exe. Enter, file is created. I go to my, okay, let me go to my folder. Yeah, system check 2, right? I just double click on it. And it opens my UI. Okay, so this is another example. So what this example is doing is basically I'm giving any computer name again and click start. What it does is it gets system details, right? It gets my OS and events that are running, yeah? And also the processes information, everything in a UI. If you give this to your manager, he's much happier to see than asking him to run some script, right? Okay, so we have covered how to wrap our script into an EXE as well, right? So we have used different tools to do this, but if you want to have one tool and do everything, you can buy a PowerShell Studio, right? It's I think around $390 something, but yeah, you can check it online. So basically, it's one tool where you can create your script, you can drag and drop items, create your GUI, and the button to build this exe file is also right on the top. You do it from there, right? Everything in one place.
But if the quality is in this line, the button is not functional.
Yep. Okay, so do we still have time?
Yeah, that's
2 minutes. 2 minutes. I'll quickly open the PowerShell Studio, right? So that you guys can have a quick look on how it looks like. Yeah, so this is, I already have installed it. So this is a trial version at the moment. So you get to try it for 45 days. Yeah. Okay. Okay, yeah. So here you have the toolbox, right? Okay. No, I think I answered.
PowerShell script also is entered from the script after we cancel.
No, I think it should be fine. Yeah, empty form. Yeah, but this should work. Okay, so now I'm just creating a simple form, and see you have all the controls. I just drag and drop, right? And then
No, that's
Windows Forms,
yeah, this is the Windows Forms one, but you can also use
it's quite usable. All you really want is simple process specification. Because if you want a button event, you just double click on the button and you go to the script with the code
if you see, I just double clicked and I went to the code, right? Immediately I can update the code and go back. So on the left hand side here, the designer. So this is the design view and this is the quick view. And once you have everything ready, you have the build option somewhere on the top. Probably
click on the product which does the tap at the top.
Oh yeah. Deploy and build. Right now it's
So
not.
you have to say it's a temporary file and it's deploy into the application.
Okay, yeah. So if I click on build, then it will build an exe file for me.
It has the both, so it can depend on it can vary depending on what operating system hardware version is available. And you can also include execution limitations that a beginner will not be able to set on. Like for example, group memberships require to execute a thing.
Okay. Yeah, so it's giving some error message, but basically, yeah, here is your exe file. Yeah, so this is my simple UI. Okay, with this, I'm done with my presentation for today. they have questions about survey, how they want.
Yeah, we will announce the survey because now we're going everyone there, so we will announce.
Yeah, so we have covered these topics to be creating GUIs using PowerShell, then leveraging Visual Studio for XAML generation, and create no PXE files, everything for free. And if you want to do it everything at one place, you can use PowerShell Studio. Yep. Thank you so much.